Hey, 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 so here we go. It is time to start solving systems of equations. And so in section 2.2, what is up first is graphing. So we're going to use the calculator to help us out a lot. If you're not using the calculator, I think you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage. Now, you could do all this by hand, but again, graphing is so tough by hand because sometimes we're not as accurate as what we want to be, where using the calculator, so much better. Okay. And so, again, I'm going to guide you through how we can use that calculator to get all the information we ever wanted from it. Okay. So remember, in order to put into our calculator, we have to be in slope intercept, which is y equals mx plus b. And if you look at our equations, we are definitely in y equals mx plus b up here. As long as you have y equals, you're ready to go into the calculator. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to put each one of these equations in. Okay, so I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to put negative x plus 2. I believe that was our first equation. I can always go back and check. Yep, negative x plus 2. That's not a minus x, it's a negative x. If you put a minus there, it's going to say error. And then the other guy was x plus 2. Let me double check on that. Yeah. So there we go. Again, all I did was push y equals, and then I put in my two equations. Your x variable is right over here by alpha. It's right next to it. That's your x. And so now, a couple things I would just double check is I would hit zoom and go down to standard. Okay, and that's going to make sure that you have a 10 by 10 graph. So I go down to standard, hit enter, and now it's going to graph it. So that was the first line I put in, the blue one. And then the second line I put in is the red one. Okay, so this is the y equals negative x plus 2. This is the y equals x plus 2. And so what you're looking for is, again, what we talked about in 2.1. If my two lines cross each other, I want to know what that point is. Okay, so right here, you can see my lines cross right here. So we want to know what is this point that my two lines cross right there. Now, hopefully you could look at this and be like, okay, I know the answer, Mr. Armstrong. The answer to this is 0, 2. Okay? But I always want to make sure that you double check this. And there are some ways that you can double check this using the calculator. But for a majority of your answers, that's all you're doing. You're just going to plug in your equation in the calculator and find the answer. Okay? So let me show you some other ways that you could do this, because our calculator is super smart. This is why I'm like, if you're not using the calculator, I don't know why, because you're putting yourself at a disadvantage right here. So say I wanted to double check that this point really is 0, 2. Well, if you hit second and trace, it's going to bring up this blue word, which is called calculate. Any word of interest on here? You bet. Intersect. If you go down to number 5 and run intersect, it's going to let you know what that point is exactly. Okay, so again, how did I get to the screen? Hit second and trace. It brings up calculate, and we want to run number 5. So you're going to hit enter. And what it's going to do is going to bring up some crosshairs. Okay, and you're going to use your calculator to scroll left or right. And where you want to scroll is you want to scroll to where these two guys hit. Okay, so scrolling left or scrolling right. Don't push up and down because that changes your line. Okay, but what you want to do is you want to scroll left, you want to scroll right to where they are hitting each other. And so they're hitting each other right there. Once you get to that intersection, all you're going to do is hit enter 3 times. And then the answer will pop up, I promise you. So once you get to that answer, once you get to that intersection, hit enter 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And down there it says intersection 0, 2. Hey, you were right. It was 0, 2. This is a way to double check yourself if you're not for sure if that point really is 0, 2. Okay? Another way is to hit second graph and go into the table. Find out when they both have the same y value. So if I'm looking through this, oh, right down here, notice I have the same y value, 2 and 2. Whenever they have the same y value, that means that's an intersection point for them. So they both intersect at 0, 2, 0, 2. So wherever they have the same y value next to each other, that's the intersection. So there you go. There's two ways to check this. Easy peasy. Okay? The only thing you have to make sure of is you have to make sure that your equations are in slope-intercept. Y equals. All right? It's really all there is to 2, 2. So go ahead and pause the video, give this one a shot. Go. Okay. So this is why I gave you those sheets all the way back in 1.1. Okay? Because this guy right here is in standard form. And on those sheets that I gave you a way to convert this into slope-intercept using 2 steps. Okay? So back from 1.1, I've given you a way to convert this into slope-intercept. I think I might have said 2.1, 1.1. So negative 9x plus y equals 1. We need to convert this into slope-intercept because I can't put this in. The second one's good to go. This is in slope-intercept. Y equals mx plus b. But this first guy, we got to convert. And remember, the first step is to add or subtract the x to the other side. So how do I get rid of a negative 9x? Add 9x. So that gives us y equals 9x plus 1, because I like to put the variable first. And notice I'm now in y equals mx plus b. So now I'm ready to go. All I got to do is put these two equations in the calculator. But wait a minute, if you notice, they're both the same. So hopefully this has given you a quick idea about what the answer to this is going to be. So if I go to the calculator and I push 9x plus 1, and then 9x plus 1, hopefully you realize, oh, these are both the same, which means that the answer really is an infinite solution. The answer is infinite solutions. So from negative infinity to positive infinity. Now, when you are doing this inside iMathAS, all what you guys will put in the parentheses for them is 0, or 00, comma, 00, meaning infinite x's, infinite y's. Okay? So actually, technically, I probably shouldn't have had that piece there. So it is an infinite solution, or really just a sideways infinity sign. That's what it means. Okay, so for the x, you're going to put 00, which means infinity. And for the y, you'll put 00, which means infinity. Any number for x, any number for y. Okay? So let's go back. Let's take a look at this. Again, the reason why it's infinite is because you're going to see one line when we graph this. You'll see the blue line get graphed, and then you'll see the red line get graphed right over top of it. Watch. Blue, red. One line means infinite solutions. Okay, just like what we talked about back in 2.1. There we go. All right, pause the video, give this one a shot. Okay, so hopefully you notice this guy is not ready to go. It's almost ready. Okay, it's like they stopped during the conversion that we are talking about right over here. See, we moved the x over, but then there was a second step. After we move the x over, remember, if there's a number in front of y, we got to come over here and divide every number by it. Remember that there's a number 1 in front of x. So we're going to go and we're going to divide by 3, and divide by 3, because whatever number's in front of y, we divide by it. So y equals, this is 1/3 x. This guy becomes plus 1. And now we're ready to go and put our two equations in the calculator and let it do the job. Okay, so we come back in here. So we'll put x, what was that first guy? X minus 4. And then down here, we'll hit alpha y equals because we have 1/3. Scroll out to the side, x. And then I think it was plus 1. So there's our two equations. If you hit graph, there they are. So we want to figure out what is that point right there. Okay. So again, it doesn't look like we can necessarily name this right off the top. This is why I taught you how to do the second trace, because this will tell us exactly what that intersection is. Okay. So again, remember I told you just scroll to the intersection and all you're going to do is hit enter 3 times. So I'm just hitting my arrow over, scroll into that intersection. So it looks like they hit each other right about there. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 on the enter, and there's my answer. 7.5, comma 3.5. Okay. So 7.5, comma 3.5. But most of the time, again, remember they want those fractions. So if you don't know what that is as a fraction, what you can do is you can come out here and say 7.5 alpha y equals, right down here at number 4, this is fraction to decimal, decimal to fraction. So if you scroll down to number 4 and hit enter and then hit enter again, there's your fraction for 7.5. So you can come back and say 15/2. And then you could do the same thing for 3.5. 3.5 alpha y equals number 4. So 7/2. So if you ever have a decimal, put in all those decimals and then go to alpha y equals and do number 4. And there's your answer. Okay, very rarely will it accept decimals. Make sure that you read that fine print down below. I'm pretty sure it's going to say, hey, give me the fraction. All right, and that really is 2-1 or 2-2. Most of your problems are going to be like this. Here are two equations. Tell me where they intersect. Okay, but there are a couple that are different. So let me talk about those. So one of the problems you might see is this. Okay, it says in solving a system of equations by graphing, you graph the lines. So here are my 2 lines. So we got this guy that's right here, and we got this line that's right there. It says, which of the points labeled shows the solution? A, B, C, D, or E. So you can see all these points up here. Here's A. Here is B. Here is C. Here is the D. Here is the E. They want to know which one of those points is the answer. Hopefully, you're like, C, Mr. Armstrong. And I would be like, yes, you're absolutely correct, because C is the intersection. And that's what they want on that. Which one of those letters, A, B, C, or D, is the answer? And the answer was C in this case. All right. Another one, you got to remember that how to graph in the system. So remember that when you graph, they love to give you the little bar that's down here. Okay. And you've got the line tool. You've got a circle tool. You've got the quadratic. You've got a dot tool. And then you've got the word clear over here. So let's talk about how this is going to work. Because what they want you to do is they want you to graph the first line, then first graph each line. So you're going to graph these two, and then you're going to put a dot where the solution is. This is going to take 5 clicks. 2 for the first line. 2 for the second line. And then 1 for the point in the end. Okay? So when you're doing this, remember how I told you can graph this one of two ways. You can graph this using slope-intercept, like what we talked about back in 1.1. Or remember that I told you that you can put these equations in and you could go to the table to graph, because the table will give you a listing of points. I'm going to remind you on both of these how to do this for the first one. So for the first one, if you're graphing in slope-intercept, well, the slope of this first line is negative 1 over 1. Because remember, there's a 1 there, and we always need 2 values for the slope. And then the intercept is 2. Okay? So the slope, remember its directions. Since the top value is negative, that means you're going to go down 1 and then to the right 1, because the bottom number is positive. So when you graph this, what you're going to do is you're going to come down here, click on the line, and then you will graph the intercept first, which is 2. So there's your first click. And as you move away, the line forms. Okay? And you're going to go down 1, right 1 for the slope. And that's your second click. And once you click the second one, your line comes on here and solidifies. So that right there is the line y equals negative x plus 2. Okay? If you did the graph, so negative x plus 2, and hit second graph, remember this is the table, remember you could have plotted, you could have used any one of these points. So we could use the point 0, 2 and the point 1, 1, and then plot those 2 points. So again, I would come back here, I would come down, click the line tool, come up and plot 0, 2 and 1, 1, and then my line would form. Hey, those are the same points we used a second ago. So again, one of two things. You could graph it slope-intercept style, so plot the intercept and then use the slope, moving up and down and then left and right. Or go in, put the equation in, and then hit second graph, and here's a list of points that you can graph to get your line. You just pick 2 of them. Okay? So the second line, oops, wrong one. The second line, I'm just going to do slope-intercept. So m is 1 over 1. The b is 2. So this means go up 1 and to the right 1. So I'll plot the intercept, and I'll go up 1, right 1. And then after those 2 clicks, my line forms. And there we go. So again, 5 clicks. 2 for the red line, 2 for the green line, and then now finally you'll come back down, select the dot, the point feature, and come up here and put a blue dot where they hit each other. 5 clicks. 2 for the red, 2 for the green, 1 for the point. That's what you got to do on that problem. Okay? After this, you don't have to do any more graphing. Okay? Now, the last kind of problem that you will see, other than the ones that I told you about, like what we saw right here at the beginning, where they give you the 2 equations, you tell me what the answer is. So you'll have this guy. So you're not actually graphing. They went ahead and they did the graph for you. Okay? Now, things that I need you to notice real quick. Notice that our axes are right here. We darkened them in for you. So there's the y-axis. There's the x-axis. Notice that they're counting by 2s, okay? Keep that in mind. Now, up here, you can see this letter A and this letter B. A is for this line. B is for that line. Okay, I know that A is closer to the green one, but the A is not about the green line. It's about the one that's right below it. Okay, so just wanted to give you a hat. So what they have done is they have graphed this, and the first question they're going to want to know is, what's the answer? So if we come up here and look at this, here's where they intersect each other. They want to know, what is that answer? Remember, we're counting by twos. So this dot is halfway. What's halfway between 0 and 2? 1. Okay? So that is 1, comma, and then we're up at 2. So the answer is, without going back up, 1, 2. All right? So that's the first part. So this is 1, comma 2. Again, you're not actually graphing that. It's all going to be there. You just got to tell them what the answer is. The next part says, okay, which line was what? So is the green line -4 minus 1y equal to -6? Or is the green line 4x plus 3y equal to 10? Okay? So in other words, we need to use our calculator to help us out here. Okay? So let's take this line right here. 4x plus 3y equal to 10. And let's get it in slope intercept so we can put it into the calculator. Because right now it's in standard form. So the first thing we're going to do, subtract 4x. So 3y equals -4x plus 10. Next thing you're going to do, get rid of the 3 in front of the y by dividing. Every number is going to get divided by 3. So what we have is y equals -4/3 x plus 10/3. Let's go to our calculator, put this in, and then we'll talk about how we figure out which line is which. Okay? So go to our calculator, come out here, alpha y equals, I'm just going to put the negative in the top, so -4/3 x, and then I think it's plus 10/3, yeah, plus alpha y equals 10/3. And now hit graph. So there it is. Now, take note of things that you see here. Look at the x-intercept. It looks like it's right above the number 3. Or sorry, that's the y-intercept. Look at the x-intercept. It's right here, looks like between 2 and 3. So go back over here and look at the lines. So I need an x-intercept between 2 and 3. Well, that would be right here. And then a y-intercept that's just above the 3. That looks like it's just above the 3 too. See how I'm looking at the features? Just above the 3 and just above the 2. The line that matches that is the red line. So that means this equation right here is technically, didn't mean to move that. All this information right here pertains to the red line. So I'm going to make it red, which means that this guy is A. So we come down here, and now we can answer the question because you've got everything that you need. Okay? So here is A. So you click on the drop-down menu, and you select A for this one. So if this guy's A, then that means this one right here is automatically B. Once you know one, you automatically get the other. So those are the kind of tricky problems they're going to throw at you at the beginning, but a majority of the problems are going to be like this guy. Here are 2 equations. Tell me what the answer is. Just so you also know, if the equation was a no solution, inside your parenthesis, you would put DNE, DNE. Okay? So if the answer was a no solution, inside here, you're going to put DNE, DNE. All right. And that, my friends, is section 2.2, graphing to solve systems. Enjoy.